The biggest private tombs in Egypt were built in the first millennium before the Christian era, in a period characterized by the presence of foreign dynasties that ruled the country of the Nile. It's a period that has remained relatively unknown and barely appreciated by historians until very recently, since it was not a time of expansion or territorial conquest. However, these impressive funeral buildings reflect an architectural renewal and an intellectual activity as intense as those associated with imperial times. The need to explore the changes in mentality that are evident in an architecture so different from that developed in Egypt until that moment is what motivates the Project 209. It focuses on the archaeological and epigraphical research of a singular site located in Luxor, on the left bank of the Nile, home to the millenary Theban necropolis. TT209 is a medium-sized tomb. It has scarcely been studied, and in the absence of debate, it has been dated at the end of the late period. An analysis of what is known about its structure and decoration led the Egyptologists at the University of La Laguna to believe that the history of this building might be different. Therefore, the primary objective of the project is to conduct a dig of the tomb to gain a detailed picture, to understand its location on a wadi, meaning dry riverbed in Arabic, to verify or refute the chronology associated with it, and to identify which ethnic group of many settled in Egypt during this period were responsible for building it. This information is essential if an understanding of the social, cultural, and religious transformations that occurred in Egypt in the first millennium BC is to be achieved. At the end of the first 3 excavation campaigns, 209 responded to an architectural model undocumented until now. When we started the project, there was only information about what we consider nowadays as an underground tomb area. But after the archaeological excavations, we have discovered that it also included a place of worship on the slopes of the wadi, which consists at least of a chamber and a patio, both of large dimensions, a monumental staircase in the center of that patio that descends towards the underground chambers, and inside these, a more complex development with the presence of spaces previously unknown. Secondly, inscriptions and reliefs have been found that provide the name of the owner, Nishemro or Ashemro, through which we can confirm that he was a foreigner. The chronology of the tomb, since all of the titles present in their inscriptions were also used by a high-ranking official at the beginning of the 25th Dynasty. So, this means both must have been very close in time. And the owner's ethnic identity, which according to previously obtained data, the aesthetics of the reliefs and the elements of his attire, the helmet, could only be Nubian, since it's known that only male Nubian figures are represented with helmets. All these findings indicate that the tomb is older than previously thought, and can be dated to around 700 BC. Our methodology is to develop a stratigraphic excavation with very precise registration techniques. A stratigraphy like this allows us to learn the full history of the tomb. Since its construction, the building continued to be used for ritual purposes for at least 500 years. It began to erode during the centuries of the Roman occupation, and it was used again during the Christian era, perhaps as a warehouse for hermits who lived in the Theban mountains. And, after a millennium, apparently unused, we again have evidence of an interrelated activity amongst archaeologists, looters, and inhabitants from the nearby villages. This stratigraphic basis makes it possible to clearly establish the historic interpretations of the social context and the mentalities of those who created the tomb. During the imperial period in the 2nd millennium BC, Egypt had ruled Nubia. After the Egyptian withdrawal, the inhabitants of the country had been decimated. Around 750, the new Nubian kingdom had enough strength to intervene in the internal politics of Egypt, and soon after, to conquer the country. The importance of 209 is that it's providing information about a period immediately after the conquest, and it provides insights into the structure of Egyptian society under Nubia's control. This situation can be understood as a model of unusual social behavior. What happens when the colonized rule what was once their metropolis? In this case, to legitimize itself, the Nubian dynasty embarks upon a search of ancient tombs and archives so as to find inspiration for their own monuments in the distant past of Egypt, a society that had once ruled them. As is well known, it was in fact the Nubian kings that revived the use of pyramids as royal tombs, and high-ranking officials like Nisemro created tombs that are a true catalogue of archaicisms. A door like the one we find on his tomb could well have been on a tomb from 1,500 years earlier. Since the initial campaign, the project has opened an unexpected line of research, namely the study of the wadi itself in which the tomb is located. We are excavating a stratigraphy created by the floods that flowed through it and ultimately covered it in sediment. The geoarchaeological study of these deposits enables us to identify rain patterns over the last millenniums in the Theban region, by dating it according to archaeological material. This type of study is unprecedented in Egyptian archaeology. We also want to continue with the excavation of TT-209 in subsequent campaigns. In 2015, we will be able to reach the archaeological levels where both the remains of burials and other rituals that were performed for the commemoration of the dead are to be found. It may be that both are relatively intact. The goal is to see to what extent these rites respond to an Egyptian model and what has been kept from Nubian tradition. In addition, the inscriptions on the door discovered just this year by the University of La Laguna inside the tomb revealed that it provides access to the burial site of Nicemero's family members. The information found will allow us to continue analysing the social relationships in the Thebes of the conquerors.